You with the sports betting tips, picks, and information in order for you to become a successful gambler. We have 5 packages that I think really do an incredible job of providing the information tailored to you, what you want, and what your sports betting needs are. For more information, reach out to the TWSN team, but we have a ton of stuff coming your way. Content from fantasy football, sports betting for UFC, NBA, NHL, and of course the NFL. We are so excited to be able to bring this service to you, and let us know if there's any more information you need.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down on.
Welcome back to On the Ball here on the Right Way Sports Network YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Will Lachlan, and again, joined by all my co-hosts, Thomas, Jacob, Nader, and Justin. Nader should be back with us soon. Before we get into it, just like to remind everyone to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what we're talking about here from the basketball. And comment down below. We love engaging with you guys, so please comment and we will respond. Of course, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers to help us get there. We have daily content, so many live shows, pretty much on a daily basis at this point, especially now that it's NFL season. But this is the NBA show on a Friday night. So let's talk about some NBA basketball. First topic of the day, we're going to get into some unfortunate injury news. Patrick Williams has dislocated his left wrist, and will be missing the rest of the season. So I want to go just give us each little quick opinions. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is this for the Bulls, specifically to their chances of really contending in the Eastern Conference? Thomas, we'll start with you on this one.
I'd say around a 6 or 7. This is a huge blow for their defense, because I was already worried about a defense that had DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic. But there was Lonzo Ball, there was Patrick Williams. Inside that starting lineup, there were a couple of guys that I felt solid about on the defensive end of the floor. And now one of those guys is out. And Patrick Williams, offensively, he's really struggled this year. Not even struggled. I think that's kind of the wrong word, but just like, he hasn't had as big of a role as I'd like him to have within the offense. But his defense was kind of his calling card, like from the draft for his rookie season. And it's going to be really, really tough for them on the defensive end of the floor now, because Williams is a guy who could switch multiple positions. He was a mistake eraser around the rim, great help defender. And now a already suspect defense just got worse. So this is bad. This is not great. This is where I wish that they kept Thaddeus Young, this moment right here. But this is tough. This is really brutal news for the Bulls.
I would probably rate this like a 5 out of 10, because although I think this could impact their chances of winning a playoff series, which I think is their ceiling, I don't think it'll fully impact their chances on making the playoffs. I still think they're going to be around in the same ballpark as a team in the regular season, around anywhere between the 4th seed potentially to like the 8th seed. I think they're going to be in that range regardless. So I don't think it'll be too impactful for the regular season, but for the playoffs, definitely, for all the reasons Thomas said. And another reason is because their lineup construction without Patrick Williams. This is something we've talked about on the show for a while now. If guys go down, it's kind of hard to replace them on this Bulls team, because, I think Derrick Jones Jr. probably will gain the starting spot in a few games. I think they'll start with Javonte Green, but I don't think that's going to work, although he's played well this season. And then they'll throw Derrick Jones Jr. in there. Hopefully they throw Elise Johnson in there, because I think he could fit well as a guy who could set screens off ball. He could cut to the rim. He has a good touch, and he's a good rebounder. I think that would be a solid bet. But the 4 spot's pretty bleak for Chicago now without Patrick Williams, and I kind of expect them to run a lot more 3-guard lineups with Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, and Alex Caruso, and then running DeMar DeRozan at the 4 and Nikola Vucevic at the 5. This way you get Alex Caruso in there, who's at this point Lonzo Ball's probably a better defender, but Alex Caruso's very important to their defense. So you get both of them in the lineup together, your 2 best defenders as of right now with Williams out. I think that's probably something they're going to do, especially in closing settings. But again, the loss of Patrick Williams, although there are some lineups you could play with and experiment with, it's still definitely a major loss, and this doesn't make them any better.
Yeah, I agree. If I had to rate this, I'd say it's 6.5 because I think there's like bad, but like I also think that the could be worse. Again, Patrick Williams is a very nice young player. He's got a lot of upside. But if you were, for the Bulls, if they had to this is a dark thing, but if they had to pick one of their players that they like would be able to deal with like having them go down the rest of the year, it's Patrick Williams because he's probably the weakest link in that starting lineup because he's just not better than any of those other four guys. Just a fact. And this is going to be tough for them because Thomas talked about his defensive versatility, but it's also tough because they just don't. This I know I've talked ad nauseum about it, but this bench is just it's not very good, and they're really, especially in the front court, they have a bad front court bench. That's what really worries me. Again, Derek Jones Jr. He's athletic, but he's built like a pencil. I don't know. He's not that good. All he can do is dunk. And other guys that they have, and it's not. It's a lot of not. I don't know. I'm not crazy about the Bulls anyway. I kept saying that if they had one of their big players go down, it would have a potential to derail their season. And I don't know if this is going to derail their season, but I think it will have an impact because of their lack of depth, which I think is going to really, really hurt them. And I don't know. I think, again, it could be a lot worse. If this was like Vucevic or Ball or DeRozan, then I would say that the season's over because I just don't think they'd be able to recover from those injuries, especially Vucevic. But it's Patrick Williams. He's good, but he's not like world beating by any stretch of the imagination. So I think that they have a shot to be able to put the Band-Aid on, for lack of a better term.
As a Bulls fan, I want to say 10. I really don't like this. This morning I thought it was a joke when I saw from my Instagram, me following Delusional Bulls fan on Instagram. I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. I saw that Woj tweeted it, and I was very disappointed. I feel terrible for Patrick Williams, especially a guy who's in his sophomore year who people expected to take a huge jump, and now he's out for the rest of the year with a wrist injury. And, wrist injuries are serious, especially when it comes. I'm not sure if it was his dominant hand or non-dominant hand. Either way, it's terrible. But I'm going to rate this about a 7 because, as Justin touched on, our lineups are going to become very guard heavy. I expect to run DeMar DeRozan at the 4, but I am very, very scared for our backcourt defense. In the paint, we're going to get destroyed if we face a good 4 and 5. Vucevic is just not a good defender. He hasn't made any improvements for what I've seen, and I've watched the Bulls probably more than anyone. I'm not a big fan of how he plays defense. I don't see him helping out. I don't see him making the correct switches. I don't see him going up to block shots. Levine, he looks good. He's not a great defender naturally, but at least he puts effort into what he does. Caruso and Lonzo Ball, great defenders, but DeMar DeRozan is still not necessarily defensive liability because I don't think that he's a complete negative, but he's definitely not an amazing defender or even above average, or he's below average in my opinion. I don't think that he's a fantastic defender. And with Patrick Williams, we're going to have guys like Johnson or Derek Jones Jr. take a huge step forward. Troy Brown Jr. is someone that I don't want to be seeing get more playing time. Troy Brown Jr. just does not impress me. His shot selection is not good. He shoots a lot of threes for someone who isn't very good at hitting them. He is athletic, and he's a downgraded version of what a 3-and-D should be. But he's not good by any stretch of he's not great by any stretch of imagination. So really just taking Patrick Williams out, who in my opinion was the glue guy of this Bulls team, just really hurts because once you're missing your glue guy, you're missing a huge piece that keeps the offense and defense together. Patrick Williams took us from being a bad defensive team to an average defensive team. He added a certain fluidity on the offensive side of the ball with his mid-range game. Although, as Thomas said, he hasn't had the role that I would have liked to seen him have. He's a bit more, he stays in the corners a lot. He's very, very, I wouldn't say irrelevant off ball, but he doesn't get the action, or I don't think his skill set is an off ball, screener, off ball shooter. I think that he needs the ball in his hands in the mid range in order to do something. So I'm just very sad. I don't think the Bulls will be hurt by this when it comes to their record. I believe they'll still be the 4 to 6 seed in the Eastern Conference, but it's definitely a huge hit. And I more feel bad for Patrick Williams because I know how good of a player he is, but it's just a terrible loss. And I'm like very, very, very sad as a Bulls fan.
Yeah, their depth is certainly going to be tested. I mean, the Bulls already kind of as is, even with Patrick Williams, they're already kind of relying on their top 6 to 7 players to really carry a pretty huge load, especially on offense. And now you're doing that even more. And even then, like Patrick Williams was really one of the only positive defenders on the team, at least one of the positive defenders who actually gets like serious playing time. And now he's gone. So, you're really relying on your 2 perimeter defenders and Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso, who are excellent in that area. But if you don't have any interior defense, your overall defensive rating, I would assume the Bulls probably will not be top 10, even with 2 elite perimeter defenders. Like we mentioned, Vucevic, not a poor defender, and you don't really have very good depth behind him. They might need to trade for another wing at the trade deadline, which I know is pretty clearly months away. But as that draws closer, we'll see how the Bulls play. If they're still around the top 5 seed, and I mean, they're one of the top seeds right now. Even though they do have a very tough schedule, if they can keep that going, maybe there's not too much pressure. But assuming that they're one of the teams that's looking to do something in the playoffs, I would certainly be trying to trade for more of a veteran defensive-minded wing come playoff time. You lose defense with Patrick Williams and obviously some high upside, really a high upside offensive option. But let's move on to our next topic, and that's going to be talking about the foul drawing rules. We talked about it a few weeks ago and kind of predicting and projecting what impacts we think it could have. And now we've seen some of the effects that it's had so far, and it's very early. But I kind of want each of us talk about an area, whether it's a player who's we've maybe seen been influenced by the rules, or just some trend that we've seen in watching these games so far that's been influenced. Justin, I'll start with you on this one. I think we can all agree that it's been a positive change so far, but what specifically have you seen that's made an impact?
Well, as a whole, again, this is a rule that's made a huge impact for the NBA in a positive way because, I mean, just from watching the game from that standpoint, I mean, the game has become more fluid, and I really like that from that standpoint, and that's how basketball should be played. Obviously, fouls are going to be drawn throughout the game a lot, but if you're getting guys who are getting 20, 25 free throws a night, I think that's a little pushing it. And the guy that everyone's talking about for this that's been affected the most is James Harden. And obviously he's been affected by this a lot. He's had the lowest foul rate of his career, I believe. But as a whole, I don't think it's just the fouling that's or drawing fouls for James Harden. I think it's a lot more. But I'll get into that later once we eventually talk about some of the disappointing players. But another guy like Joel Embiid is a guy that I think is honestly, he's been affected the most out of every player because Embiid last year came off one of the best offensive seasons for a big of all time, especially as a scorer. And a main reason due to that is because he was able to get to the line at will, pretty much. He was able to get to the line whenever he wanted. I think he averaged around like 9-10 free throw attempts a game, which is absolutely absurd, especially for a big man. And now his production clearly is not the same. And although Ben Simmons, who was their primary on-ball playmaker, isn't there, I mean, I don't think that's really affecting it that much whatsoever. Embiid has not been able to get to the line. And although he's still producing at an all-star level and a great level, it's just not to the point where people are even considering him in MVP conversations. So I think Embiid has been the most affected by this new rule change, even more so than a guy like James Harden. Because, as I said, I'll get into it later, but I don't think it's just that for James Harden. I just think as a whole, Embiid has been affected by this a ton. And as for the NBA as a whole, again, the game has become more fluid. It's become more digestible in a sense. So as a whole, it's obviously a positive rule change. And I think Embiid has definitely been the most affected out of all the stars.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with in somewhat. Again, when we talked about this last time, I was very excited because to me, this should have been done like 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This is long overdue. I'm sick and tired of watching people flail their body forward like they're like ballerinas. It's so annoying. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of James Harden flopping his hands like he's like that thing at the gas station, like those blow up things that you see like move around. That's what he does half the time he's playing, and it's ridiculous. It really is. And what's good about it is that it actually it doesn't like hinder defenders where it's like they can't play defense anymore, but it also makes offensive players that are good have to adjust, which is a good thing because they should have to work for baskets more. Basketball is supposed to be a contact sport, not a pat on the back sport. Like that's not how it's supposed to. That's how it's supposed to be. And I love this new rule because I think it's making a very positive impact on the game. We don't need people going to the line 1,000 times a game. It slows the game down. It's not fun to watch. It's stupid. And this is one of the, I think, as far as rule changes, maybe one of the best things the NBA has done in a very, very, very long time.
Guys, can you tell if Jacob liked the rule change or not? Because I really can't tell.
I don't know.
Signals here.
No idea.
I can't tell. I don't know.
Back to the way they played in the 50s.
Nader, what about you, man?
I have to, for once in my entire life, I actually agree with Jacob. I'm very happy with this rule change. I mean, the refs aren't calling fouls where offensive players jump up, smack the defender, and fall down. It is beautiful. I am really, really happy that they're finally deciding to address this. And not only that, but the refs are starting to take actions. The thing I was worried about when it came to this rule change was that the refs weren't going to institute anything, or they weren't going to instill anything into the way that they actually played and actually reffed the game. Because, knowing the refs, they're still atrocious. They're not very good. I'm not a big fan of the way the NBA refs just conduct their jobs, with all due respect. But again, at least they're not making calls that aren't fouls. And they're, bringing back a certain audience to the NBA. Many people that tend to be on the older side, like Jacob, they didn't like the NBA and they stopped watching it because it just was something that they didn't grow up with. They grew up with things that fouls weren't just fouls just because you touch someone. There was some sort of, physicality to the game that made basketball what basketball is. And although we're not 100% there, they're starting to eliminate things that's making the game more watchable. And in the end, this whole rule change is going to help the game become more globally accepted, and it's going to bring back a certain audience back to the sport.
I actually don't think this rule change has been as impactful as probably as a lot of other people think. Don't get me wrong, in terms of those stupid things where you can lead off with your arm and then tangle it with another person and throw up a shot. Yeah, you're going to get rid of those stupid ones. Should have been gone a long time ago. But in terms of actual free throw production, for most guys, it really hasn't changed. Justin brought up Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's getting to the line 9 times a game. Last year, he got to the line 11 times a game. And that's just kind of the thing. That would be the 3rd highest number of his career. Even someone like Jimmy Butler, who I've always talked about just because, I wasn't a fan of how his scoring versatility has gone down so much in recent years because his jumper has fallen off a cliff and he's relied so much on free throw production. And now this year I was like, oh, maybe with the rule changes, it won't be as bad. No, he's getting to the line more than ever. Trey Young has been someone who's seen a noticeable dip, which is actually quite weird because I actually think he's been getting to the rim more. In terms of James Harden, I think it's simply the fact that he's aging. I don't think it has anything to do with the foul baiting. I think it's due to the fact that he can't get to the rim like he could anymore. And the thing with Harden is that he's never been if you watch Harden, he's not a quick first step get to the rim guy. He's never been that way, but he's had to compensate with a bunch of different ways, getting really, really strong, being able to bounce off guys, being able to use his handle to get into the lane. It's never been about him being able to blow past guys and get to the rim and generate offense that way. It's about finding other ways to compensate for that. Well, now he can't really compensate for that because he's not getting to the rim anymore. And James Harden is amazing. He's an amazing basketball player, and I have no doubt that he's going to come back from this. But for someone who's not getting to the rim as much, I do kind of worry about how the rest of his game is going to work out because he is so reliant on jump shooting, and it's just threes. He doesn't take mid-range shots anymore. It's threes and layups. And if you eliminate layups, well, then you're just taking a bunch of threes. And Harden's a great three-point shooter, but you can't rely on 10, 12 threes a game to make your scoring production elite. It's not going to work unless you're Steph Curry. It is what it is. So I don't actually think the foul drawing thing has done a ton. I think it's eliminated a lot of stupid fouls that I think it makes the game more watchable. But in terms of actual players, I think there's a much bigger issue that's going on in terms of lowering people's scoring rates, and I don't think it's free throw drawing.
Yeah, James Harden, a lot of people seem to think it's just like, oh, he's not getting, he's just not getting the opportunity to get those foul calls because he's not getting to the rim. He's taking he is taking quite a bit of like mid-range floaters, like those runners, that he's not making an efficient rate at all. Like I believe, shooting 12% on those like mid-range, one-handed mid-range floaters that he takes. And he's taking quite a bit of them. He's taking a lot of threes, not a lot of shots to the rim. And I honestly think some of that's due to the hamstring injury, which he's stated that he's still kind of recovering. Like he didn't really have the offseason was kind of just recovering from that more of than it was. And again, he was rushed back. Like when we saw him in the Nets series, that was not James Harden. Even though James Harden certainly had postseason stinkers and he did that in that series, but that was because of injury more than him just underperforming. And again, we're seeing him underperform, but again, I just think that has to be due to injury. That's what Steve Nash's coach has said. That's what he said. So yeah, I have no doubt that he'll be fine. I mean, I think his free throw is certainly not going to be out of the roof like it's been, like historic free throw volume. But it should be among the highest in the league at some point. In terms of overall, I want to kind of look at some numbers that could have something to do with this. I don't know. It's just there's a few interesting trends that if you look at some numbers, 20 free throw attempts is a game for the NBA average is technically right now it's an all-time low. Now, again, we're only like a week and a half in. And I think that number is probably going to go up to about, like an average, maybe a below average. But right now it's at an all-time low. Granted by not that much. I believe that's only by like 0.5. The lowest offensive rating as a whole for nearly a decade. The highest rated teams when it comes to offensive rating is the Charlotte Hornets at 114.8. And that would have ranked 12th last year. So 54.8% true shooting percentage is the league average. And it hasn't been, last year was 57. It was actually above 57. So it hasn't been that low in 5 years when it comes to the league average. So again, there's some numbers when it comes to just the shooting percentages. When we're watching these games, I think we've all seen it. We've seen a bit more defense, not as much elite shot making. Maybe it's just because it's the start of a new season and some guys just aren't quite hitting the shots that they normally do at this point. And there's some more slow starts than we've seen. But it's an interesting thing to note. And obviously we'll keep monitoring this stuff as the year goes on. This is definitely an ongoing topic for years to come. And so let's transition to the rookies. We love talking about prospects in the draft. So I think it's only right that we kind of follow up and, evaluate how they've been doing so far at certain points in the year. I want us to kind of give just a rookie who's, if we've all done some pre-draft work, if we've done like some serious pre-draft work, give us a rookie who's proved us right so far in terms of what we've seen. And then also one who's maybe proved us wrong so far. Or you could just give us a rookie who's really impressed you. But Nader, I want to start with you on this one. Give me a rookie who's really proved you right and one who's proved you wrong thus far in the season.
I'm actually going to just center mine around someone that I think not necessarily has let me down, but has definitely disappointed me to some degree because, again, it's only been 5 games into the season. And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think that he still has the potential to become a great NBA player down the line. I'm just more disappointed about how his team has been using him. And that guy is Moses Moody. Moses Moody, he's a fantastic talent. I scouted him a lot during the pre-draft process. He was one of I believe I had him ranked number 7 on my big board. I really just liked his 3-and-D ability. I liked what I saw in him during college. And I just thought that he was a great fit for the Warriors. I thought they were going to take him before Kuminga, but they actually took Kuminga, ended up getting him at what I believe was 14, if I'm not mistaken. Late lottery. And, he's actually ranked towards the bottom 3 rookies in the top 35. So he's right now, I believe he's ranked at 32. And he's just been below average for, just a lot of stats, such, 3-pointers made, points, and just in general, all of the main things, turnovers, he's not terrible because he doesn't get playing time, but everything else, he's just been, not necessarily relevant, but I'm just disappointed in how the Warriors have been using him because I think that he's a talent that they can plug in right now, especially with both Kuminga and Klay Thompson out, that can actually make a difference. I think that he's a great weapon when Steph is on the court. And, I believe that many people were a bit worried about Moody's ability to create for himself during the pre-draft process. And when you're playing with the best playmaker, arguably, of all time in Steph Curry, and then you don't need to worry about playmaking for yourself because you have a guy that can dish out to you, that can attract and take what we've seen, in his prime. Curry could attract 5 out of the 5 guys defending on the court just so he wouldn't hit a 3-pointer and open up opportunities like we've never seen. Like a few months ago, this tweet went viral of Steph Curry when back in, I believe, 2017, when he was playing the Rockets and 4 guys came on to him just when he made a cut. And that just shows you so much about how Steph's off-the-ball gravity can create for guys like Moses Moody. And I don't know why Steve Kerr isn't playing him more. He hasn't necessarily done anything to not show us that he's a great talent. I still believe that he can adjust. And I really hope that he can, not necessarily get it together, but I really hope that he has the ability to shine. Because right now, I'm not impressed with the way the Warriors are using him. And yeah, it's a bit twist to what the topic was, but I think that it was just important to say.
One guy that's proven me right so far has been Franz Wagner. I had him ranked top 5 in the pre-draft process, and mainly just because it's kind of more of a team building thing for me. Like, he is the perfect wing for the modern NBA. He's 6'10", a good perimeter shooter. I was kind of confused by the skepticisms about his outside shot, coming in. Like, he was a 34% 3-point shooter, which isn't good, but it's not a bad number. He had tons of good shooting indicators. He was a good shooter overseas. It never made a lot of sense to me. When some people were doubting the shot, he's already proven to be a good outside shooter. A really solid passer for someone his size, can legit run a second side pick and roll. Really good hitting the roll man. And then on defense, he's already so good. He's not a great run and jump athlete, but it doesn't matter. He just has so many micro skills on defense. He uses his physical tools to the absolute max. He's just been a joy to watch. He's honestly been playing like the Magic's best player. I'm not that surprised. I'm definitely surprised he's been this good, but I always knew he was going to be kind of an impact rookie right away. Also, shout out Austin Reeves, who I had ranked in the first round and has now become a legit rotation player for the contending Los Angeles Lakers. And then a guy who's proved me wrong, and I don't want to say even Scotty Barnes. And I liked Scotty Barnes in the pre-draft process. I never understood the top 5 stuff, but I always thought Scotty Barnes was an NBA player. But his offense, I don't even want to say it was a terrible take by me, because he's just developed so rapidly, so quickly. Go watch a Toronto game. This dude is hitting pull-up mid-ranges off the bounce at 3 or 4 times a game. He's hitting threes. I don't understand. The development curve for a guy like that. I can't even say I was wrong, because I was wrong, but it's not even my fault. He just turned into a great jump shooter overnight. I don't props to him. I'm so bewildered by how quickly he's gotten this good on the offensive end of the floor. So props to Scotty Barnes. He's proven me wrong. But yeah, I still liked him, but
yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just gonna talk about players that I think are terrible. Jalen Suggs has the golden crown for that. I don't know where he learned how to shoot. Maybe it was from Iman Shumpert or something. The guy's you want to throw up when you look at his numbers. He's shooting 28% from the field.
Why Iman Shumpert?
I don't know. I was. Can you have better? Yeah,
we love Iman Shumpert.
If there was one thing Iman Shumpert could do,
it's
shoot.
Well, he was about to get a defense, but anyway, this isn't about Iman Shumpert. We don't have that kind of time. But anyway, Jalen Suggs is just he's shooting 28% from the field and 21% from 3. I don't know how. I just don't know how that's even possible. You have to be a special kind of bad to do stuff like that, in my opinion. And yes, there's a strong possibility that he can turn it around. But I don't know. I never liked it. I didn't think that him in Orlando made a lot of sense. I know Markelle Fultz is hurt, but they did give him $51 million. So I don't know where their priorities are. They already have Cole Anthony, so I just don't understand what they're trying to do. And another guy that this isn't his fault, I just hate where he went, is Davion Mitchell. When the Kings drafted him, I didn't get it. I don't understand why in the heck they drafted him. They don't need him. They don't need any more guards. But then again, they're the Kings. They do everything backwards, and they don't really know how to use him. I guess I get it. He had 20 something points one game, but he's been pretty bad. the other games that he's played, because I just don't think that they need him, and I don't think that was a really good spot for him to get taken. I kind of wish that he was taken by a team that like actually like needed him to play like start or like be like the first guard off the bench rather than like the second or like the third. I just don't like the way. I just don't think that. I feel like the Kings could have used their resources in a different way. And, I don't know. And again, like those two, but I think a lot of this draft class has been, again, it's 5 games in, but a lot of this draft class looks really bad. I was like looking at like the numbers and they just, I don't know, not too great. But, again, it's very early. Things will change, and we'll see what happens.
So there's a couple guys that I want to touch on that I've been surprised by a few of them, but not necessarily for all. I'll start with Chris Duarte from the Indiana Pacers. And with Karis LeVert out to start the season, they needed someone to fill that role of a scorer to start and a creator to start. And Chris Duarte, coming into the league, is a 20-point per game scorer right away. And although I don't expect that to continue throughout the years, especially with Karis LeVert coming back through sometime this season, he's still going to be a 15, 16-point per game guy off the bench. He's just looked terrific in the role he's been asked to play. He's been playing a lot of minutes. And first of all, for a rookie, despite how old he may be at 24 years old, that's something that no rookie could really sustain, but he's sustaining it very well. And he's really just come in and played the role that he's been asked to play perfectly as a creator, a guy who can play off ball. He's played solid defense, and he's really given Indiana an extra punch of offense with Karis LeVert out. And obviously they haven't been great, but it's not like they're getting blown out every single night. They've been in some close games, and a lot of that is due to Chris Duarte being amazing right away. And obviously everyone expected him to be good right away since he's 24 years old. He's very old, and for a rookie, obviously, he's very old. And I mean, looking at his skill set, he was bound to be NBA ready right away.
Like Jacob, he's very old.
Yes, like Jacob, but he was bound to be NBA ready right away. But no one really expected this 20 points per game right away. So I've been surprised by him. Another guy I want to touch on quickly is Josh Giddy of Thomas's Thunder. Josh Giddy, I was always high on Josh Giddy, but I never really expected this. It's not like he's been playing at some rookie of the year level, but he's had some very impressive outings. And as a whole, some of the things that people were concerned about, obviously his shooting, his defense, they've looked pretty solid to start his career. Obviously his shooting, I mean, it's still not great, but the indicators are looking a lot better as the games go on. And that's something that we couldn't really say in the pre-draft process. So that's been very promising. And for the Thunder, obviously they're not really focusing on winning games, but they haven't really gotten Josh Giddy too involved in the offense, which is something I want to see them do more, especially considering he is probably the best on-ball playmaker or one of the best on-ball playmakers in the class. So they need to get him involved more. But when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he's been really solid without the ball. He's making great cuts, and he's finding the spots without the ball in his hands to have OKC succeed. So I've really liked what I've seen from Josh Giddy in pretty much all facets. And finally, I just want to quickly touch on Evan Mobley. His defense has looked elite, and not just for a rookie. It's looked legitimately elite right away, which I expected that. But for a rookie, that's kind of unprecedented. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Evan Mobley. He's been proving me right, and every single one of us right from our pre-draft take. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to him.
Number one, you guys stole all my players. Like I don't have it. Well, no, that's not true. There's a couple guys that I can still talk about. But yeah, I mean, I kind of share a lot of what you guys said. Except for I think Davion Mitchell has been fine. I mean, offensively, yeah, like the 3-point shot has not been that good. I think he's shooting like 25% or something on offense. But on defense, he's been excellent. Like, and then I think we all knew like his defense would be amazing, but like he's legitimately like one of the best perimeter defenders already in the NBA. And I mean, maybe I should have expected that, but I don't know. It's just really amazing to see that from a rookie. And then Chris Duarte is certainly I put him at 27, and that looks awful because he's a rookie of the year candidate. And granted, it was, I mean, I could get on I don't want to get on a whole tangent about, I need to reevaluate how I look at older prospects. Like the guys like Davion Mitchell and Chris Duarte definitely undersold those guys' value with where I had them. But that's the thing for moving forward. In terms of guys who've, proven me right and proven me wrong, I would say Alfred Şengün has looked pretty nice in the time that he's gotten. Again, his time's been pretty limited, as has time for quite a bit of these rookies. So this will definitely be an ongoing thing that we'll do. But I think Alfred Sengun's looked pretty nice defensively. He's had some really good games. Like he's had some games where he's got racked up some steals and blocks, which certainly doesn't show the full picture. But I think for a guy like Sengun, you don't really expect him to be like a high steals and blocks guy or really that good of a defender at all. And he's looked better in space than I thought he would at the NBA level, which has surprised me. And then offensively, he's definitely shown some really nice short roll passing and just being a play finisher on offense. Really good roll man. So I've been very impressed with him. And I had him, some people were way too low on Sengun. Some people were really high. I kind of had him in the middle, and I think he's certainly backed that up so far. And then a guy who's proven me wrong in terms of this is really, it's not like I was low on him. I was actually extremely high on him, and he's not played that well so far, even though it's early. And I knew Trey Mann would not start off his NBA career very well. I think it's going to be an ongoing process for him. But in the time that Trey Mann's gotten, he's shown off some nice step back and space creation moves, which I expected. But overall, he hasn't looked that good. His passing has been pretty weak. I knew his defense wasn't that good, but man, off the ball, he just gets lost a lot on defense. And it's pretty concerning because if he's not able to make those shots on offense, then he can just become like an unplayable player, which isn't good, especially for an OKC team that's in a complete rebuild and needs these young players to step up. So Trey Mann has certainly not backed up that. I mean, I had him 7 in my top 10, and he certainly has not backed that up yet at all. But I'm not going to jump ship at all on Trey Mann. But I am disappointed in what I've seen from him thus far. But let's move on to one of our other topics, and that's going to be we're going to take a look at some teams who've kind of stood out in both conferences so far. Could be in a good way or a bad way. We'll start off with the Eastern Conference. Jacob, we'll start with you. Give us a team in the Eastern Conference that stood out to you in a good way or a bad way.
Well, first of all, talking about a good way, the New York Knicks, of course.
No.
They are rolling.
Typical.
Nader's upset because RJ Barrett put the clamps on DeMar DeRozan, who's supposed to be a good mid-range jump shooter, but guess not. But anyway, it was a
Jacob,
tough.
the Knicks almost blew that lead
rebut
last
it.
night. Embarrassing. I should say, the
What'd
Knicks
you say?
came dangerously close to blowing that last
But
night.
Exactly. And I don't even feel like arguing. I'm gonna let you have this one, Jacob.
Way too
I'm gonna let you have this one.
But they didn't. That's the point. That's why it's not the same old Knicks. They didn't blow the game. They hung it out and they toughed it out, despite the fact that Julius Randle was playing like he does when he wants to be really.
You're up by
annoying.
12 with 3 minutes to go, Jacob, and you won by 1.
But we won. I don't care how we won. We won. That's all I care about. I don't that's the beauty of this team. They will put their guts on the line every single night. They play amazing defense. As you can see, when we beat the Celtics the first night, outside of the Garden, the Madison Square Garden, not the stupid TD Garden that stole our whole Garden shtick. They can kick rocks. Anyway, we had all of our fans just out there going crazy, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at those fans! They just won one game." Listen to me. You don't understand. When we win, it's a beautiful thing because it hasn't happened a lot in recent memory. So when we do win, we're going to savor it. So I don't want to hear, "Oh, look at those buffoons out there, blah, blah, blah." Don't rain on our parade, okay, pal? This is to the general public. Stop. Let us enjoy our fun. But on a serious note, the Knicks look really good. What I love about the Knicks this season is the depth. I love their bench. Their bench, they have at least someone at every single position that can step up. And Nerlens Noel hasn't even gotten back yet, and he's a monster on the defensive end. And what I also love is the fact that this year, they're still a great defensive team, but now they hit threes at a rapid clip. They love shooting the three. They'll hit it at a constant rate, and it's made them a whole lot better offensively. And the team itself is so much more spread out. It's better. You don't have to have Randall chuck up a bunch of horrible shots like he wants to, but he's smarter. And it's more open. It's more, we have Kemba, we have Derrick Rose, we have Obi Toppin, I think, has made a lot of big strides this year because he's out there playing, which is what he should have been doing last year. But and it's a great cohesive unit. I love Tom Thibodeau. I'd run through a brick wall for him any day of the week. I love his passion. It's like as a Knicks fan, it's what I've been asking for so many years. It's old school. Like, it's funny. Like, we always talk about we want stars. And you know what we want? We want a team that loves to play for the Knicks, that loves to play in the Garden, that is going to put their heart on the line every single night. And it's just a beautiful thing to watch. And, you know, I can't ask for much more. I mean, the Knicks, we're going places. You know, the Jets are up. I mean, and I'm the pilot, so
Jacob,
seats ready. And
Jacob, I want to say this though about the Knicks. It is interesting how I think you brought up a great point about how like the Knicks, it's been like, oh, we need to get the big star free agents, and now they've kind of come out of the gutter per se, based on, you know, great coaching. Tom Thibodeau is known for his defensive coaching, but the sets that he runs on offense are really, really effective too. Like a lot of time he'll just have all 5 guys have a role in certain plays on offense. So he can coach offense really well as obviously being known for his defense, which makes him one of the best coaches in the league. And it's fun to see that the Knicks are coming alive, but not in the way that everyone, you know, expected them to. It's like they got to get the Carmelo Anthonys back and get these huge Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and draft Zion. No, in a completely different way.
Kevin Durant is wishing that he was on our team now. You know it. I mean,
I mean, you know, you guys do have a better record than
he plays for a team where 10 people go to the games. Like, no one goes to their games. We have a sellout every single night.
A sellout with Julius Randle as your best player.
Exactly. It doesn't matter who the best player is. We sell out because we have the most loyal fans, minus Max Kellerman.
Loyal fans? You guys didn't want to do anything with your team for like the last 10 years. The moment you guys win 4 games, you decide to go off. You guys are the most like biased fans I've ever met in my life.
What are you talking about, biased fans?
You guys wanted to like blow up the ship. Like you've been telling James Dolan to sell the team for the past 5 years. Dude put together an okay team.
The reason that we are good. The reason that we are good,
I take responsibility for causing this,
is because James Dolan focuses on his horrible jazz band and doesn't like really tinker with the team. That's what he needs to do. Please don't even go to the games. He's always kicking people out. He's a lowlife. I don't like him. If we had like a good owner, oh my God. If we had a good owner, the sky is the limit. The ceiling is the roof, as Michael Jordan would say.
Second round exit.
Guys, right now I only want one thing in life. I want one thing, and that is for Thomas to give me his team that stands out in the Eastern Conference.
I am so excited to talk about this team because I absolutely love watching them. I've loved watching them for a year, and they are so good. So good. The Charlotte Hornets. I am going to buy – I've already bought all of my LaMelo stock. That dude is going to be a superstar. I'm going to – right here, right now, I'm buying all of the Miles Bridges stock that there is left. And not because – I mean, the production is great. Like, he's 26 points, 8 rebounds, shooting 40% from 3, 65 true shooting. He's been amazing. Like, he just – what I love about Bridges is that, like, there's just so much – like – obviously, he won't produce at this level, but I truly do believe in the sustainability of his production because of just how well-rounded of a scorer he is now. Like, you can use him as like a roll man, someone like you can set him in like a pick and roll and have LaMelo throw a lob up to him. You can have him roll into the basket. He's always been a decent spot-up shooter, someone who can attack closeouts. Now he's paired it with legit creation. Like he's hitting step-back threes, he's hitting movement threes. When he gets to the basket, like he's got a really low crossover. He uses a spin move really, really well to get into the lane. He's really strong now, so he can use he has like great strength-based creation where he's able to finish around the basket using his body, using his frame. When you have someone like that who is a monster athlete, who's super strong and can hit threes at a 40% clip, like it's gonna be somewhat sustainable. Like I truly believe in the star flashes I've seen from him. Like seriously, like to a point now where I'm questioning which Bridges I want more long term, Mikal or Miles. It's seriously getting there. His defense has always been really good. It's still pretty good this year, although he's taking much more of an offensive load. So it's gone down a little bit. But, man, Miles Bridges is so good. LaMelo is ridiculous. Again, that dude is going to be a superstar. I like what I've seen from Gordon Hayward. He's kind of picked up where he left off last year. Once PJ Washington figures out how to play basketball again, this team's going to be really good. Really, really good. They've got a solid bench. I love their coach. I love LaMelo and Bridges. I love everything about this team. I watch them every night. So good.
I just can't believe, just sorry to interject there, that Thomas Stapleton said that he is having a tough time picking between the Bridges, Mikal, and because I mean, last time I checked, Thomas Stapleton thought that Mikal Bridges was like better than LeBron last time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know.
Mikal Bridges
he loves.
Hey,
I think he
Mikal Bridges has left LeBron in the dust.
Thomas Stapleton likes Mikal Bridges
quite a few times.
Thomas Stapleton likes Mikal Bridges more than probably some of his own family members do. I mean, that's something.
You might be right. I mean,
he loves Mikal Bridges.
I do love Mikal Bridges. Now I love them both. I don't know who to choose.
Before I even get onto my team, I want to claim who I would have. I would take Miles Bridges as of right now. For the future, wow. I would have Miles Bridges on my bench.
No, I'm not jumping. I'm not, because Mikal Bridges is playing great, and he's playing. Mikal Bridges is like improving from what he did last.
Do you guys really think this is gonna last with Miles Bridges?
No, I don't think he's gonna average 26 a game the whole year. No, but I think at his peak he could easily be a 24, 25 guy.
I'm still going with Mikal, but Justin, you can tell us about your team as well.
Okay, so I did not expect this from this team, and I think you guys know what team I'm going to talk about. But it's the Washington Wizards, and for good reason. For good reason. This team, I have not seen this team have this much cohesion, this much of a collective unit since 2016 when they had John Wall and Bradley Beal, obviously Marcin Gortat. When they had that group, this team has not had cohesion like that since then. I mean, when you get Bradley Beal and you give him a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie to take pressure off him, and then you surround them with legitimate defenders, which I didn't even think we had going into the year, but you surround them with legitimate defenders. You put in a defensive system that works. You get guys crashing the glass, even with Daniel Gafford out for one game and Montrezl Harrell going down for part of the game against the Hawks. You're still able to crash the glass and out-rebound a Hawks team with Clint Capella and John Collins. That's just, it's very promising. And everyone on this team plays a role. I mean, I'm not even going to get into Bradley Beal right now, but Kyle Kuzma has impressed me so much. I thought I was going to see the same Kyle Kuzma with the Lakers, making bad plays and being inconsistent, being great one night, being bad the other. This is a completely different Kyle Kuzma than I expected to see. If I thought he was going to make a jump, I would think he would be an inefficient volume scorer, but he's legitimately playing great defense. His rebounding has been very impactful for us, and he's been the lead rebounder for this team, I believe. And his energy as a whole has been great. Obviously, he still made some bad plays throughout the year, but he's been so much better than what I thought on both ends of the floor. And he's playing his role on offense. He's not obviously he's made shots and bad shots, but he's still playing a role on offense that works. Montrezl Harrell's another guy that I wanted gone as soon as we got him, and he has been terrific for the Wizards. And in some stretches, he's been the Wizards' best player. And there's a legitimate chance he could win a second Sixth Man of the Year award. And I just love what I've seen. Harrell was a guy that used to just be impactful in spurts, but for the entire time he's in the game now, he's making an impact on offense. Defensively, he still hasn't been great, but he hasn't been a complete liability because Wes Unseld Jr. has put in such a disciplined system. And then you get guys like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Aaron Holiday, who has impressed me a lot, Raul Neto, Denny, who's been amazing outside of the Hawks game where he didn't do that great. He's had an all-around great season. And then you bring in Spencer Dinwiddie and Bradley Beal, who Beal has obviously struggled. He had a great game against the Hawks, but he's been playing injured the whole season. He missed a game, and as a whole, he just hasn't been playing great. And the Wizards are still winning games despite that. They won the game where they didn't have Bradley Beal against the Pacers, and throughout the entire season, he's struggled mostly. They're still winning games. So this is not a team that I'm going to say is going to be a top 2, 3, 4 team in the East. But if the Wizards were a 6 seed and were
not even close, come on.
If the Wizards were a 6 seed, I would not be surprised. I won't even. I would
be surprised if we were a 6 seed because we're gonna be a top 4 seed. The Wizards.
Thank you, William. No.
But I'll say this.
Will, come on, Will.
No, I want to tackle on this.
Wake up.
Denny Avdia is playing really good defense. Like he's offensively, he's not really that good at all. But he is that when he plays, he comes in and like against the Celtics, I'm not going to say he was locking down Jason Tatum, but like he was giving Jason Tatum some fits. And I was shocked. I was like, Denny Avdija is like getting right in Jason Tatum's grill, and I was loving what I was seeing.
I have breaking news. James Harden has 11 free throws in the first half. So
there we go.
Yeah, he's back. Don't know what happened.
Also, more breaking news. Torrey Craig has 16 points at halftime. So this is like a really special moment for me because I'm like his biggest fan without a shadow of a doubt. So
Of course,
He's such a bandwagon.
Jacob's love for Torrey
No. I have been on the Torrey Craig bandwagon for a long time.
The Torrey Craig bandwagon doesn't exist, but he's
for what reason?
I'm a solo pilot. It's like a Southwest plane. It's not a great plane, but I am I am like the head man on that one. I promise you that.
You're the only man on that one.
Exactly.
Honestly, yeah.
I know. I just said it's a solo.
That was
ride.
made 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. Hell of an adventure.
Nader, before you go, I want to say one thing about Justin and about the Wizards. Last night I saw the Wizards run a Spain pick and roll and KCP hit a 3 off of it at the top of the key, and I honestly I almost shed a tear. I was like, what am I saying? Wes Unseld Jr. has us running plays, running actual sets, unlike Scott Brooks.
And David Whitman. It's been a very long
and Whitman. It's incredible what I'm seeing from Wes Unseld Jr. The Wizards are actually running like real plays and sets. But Nader, give us your team, man. I can't say enough about Wes Unseld Jr.
All right, would you like me to give a team that I'm disappointed on? Because I think that would be a bit more spicier.
Yes.
Or would you rather?
Yes.
Yes? All right. Actually, I'm sorry to all my fellow Bulls fans for saying this, but I am remotely disappointed in the Bulls. Thomas, look at me as crazy as you want.
Bulls?
Listen, we played the Pistons twice. We won a game against the Raptors.
Wait, Nader, wasn't this what Jacob was saying last week?
Listen, I'm not letting Jacob win for now. I'm not letting Jacob
You
win
are
for now.
literally speaking my language of all the things that I'm screaming about.
Jacob.
You are preaching my gospel. Continue.
Jacob. Ha! You guys actually thought I was disappointed in the Bulls. Never. We are the best team in the league.
Should be.
The team I am actually disappointed in is the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh, okay.
I think that's pretty fair. As we said, Joel Embiid is nowhere near effective this year with his new fouling rules, and I do think that he will get it together because Joel Embiid is the second best center in the NBA, and if you're the second best center in the NBA, you're pretty much a top 2 center in the world, and I think that Joel Embiid is definitely a top 2 center talent in the world. I think he's fine. I mean, what is everyone laughing about?
Because you were like, Joel Embiid is the second best center in basketball, so if he's the second best center in the NBA, he's the second best center in the world.
Yeah,
that's just common knowledge.
It's just common knowledge. If you're in the NBA,
center or the first or the second,
he's number 2. Listen,
number 2.
If you're the second best center in the NBA, you're the second best center in basketball.
For now.
All right, Jacob's making his smart little comments.
Until Karl Anthony Towns surpasses him this year, but
Thomas,
Ooh.
we're not starting this
At
agenda.
this rate, that could be a possibility. Karl Anthony Towns is an underrated MVP candidate. The Timberwolves are 3-1, and Karl Anthony Towns is amazing right now.
And now,
I'll throw that out there.
And before I let Nader go again, now you could all understand my Timberwolves.
No,
I don't even know the word for it, but
They're 3-1.
And you're 4-1, and you're hyping the team up.
Yeah, they
You're
played
hyping
4
the team
games
up
and
like
won
the best
3.
team in
They're
basketball.
3-1. With all due respect, the Mavericks,
the Bulls are 4-1.
who look terrible, are 3-1.
The Bulls are 4-1, but they're still going to be in the play-in. So,
excuse me.
Breaking news: all these teams have only played 4 or 5 games. So
thank you. This is why we need William as our mediator. He just keeps us in reality check, especially Jacob. Right over there. Jacob needs reality checks more than the rest of us. So, yeah. The Philadelphia 76ers.
Jacob and I are older or wiser.
Exactly. Except that you're the mature one and Jacob acts like a 12-year-old.
Nader, you are 12. What are you talking about?
I'm 14 and a half, Jacob. Big difference. Thomas is only like a year older than me.
He's almost on puberty, guys.
You guys are messed up.
Wait, Nader, do you have anything more to say about the Sixers? Or?
Yeah, no, I actually do. So, they need to trade Ben Simmons right now. They need to get him out. He's just not playing for them. And if he's not playing for them, they are getting absolutely no value. Daryl Morey has to understand that Ben Simmons is not very good, and he has to stop rejecting the packages of a guy like Malcolm Brogdon and or Karis LeVert. I think that those guys can flourish on a team like the 76ers. Like, if you put Patty Mills in last year in the playoffs, they would have won the series. They would have run in the second round, and they would have made the Eastern Conference Finals. Patty Mills, although Patty Mills is like doing fantastic, Patty Mills is not by any means some fantastic guard. He's a good guard, but it just shows how the 76ers actually need to trade Ben Simmons. People have to understand, and they have to understand that he's not at the level that many people think he is, and they have to acknowledge it and realize that their team is struggling. All this money and all the time they've put in and all the trades Elton Brand has made. He traded for Tobias Harris. He's traded for Curry. He's traded for Jimmy Butler. He's gotten together beautiful, beautiful basketball teams, but he's not able to capitalize. And with a team like the 76ers, whose whole goal, as I've said before a few months ago, although I've changed my thinking, for some teams it is championship or bust, and the 76ers are definitely one of those teams. They were the joke of the league, even more than the Timberwolves have been for like years. They were one of the worst franchises of all time for a bit. In that period in the early 2010s, they were just terrible. And now that they finally have a star, and although they had 2 stars, they need to be able to at least contend this year. If they get anything lower than the 6th seed, in my opinion, it's a failed season regardless of them. If they make the playoffs, Embiid needs to get it together. Simmons needs to be traded. Tobias Harris needs to step up a bit more, although he's been being decent. And I overall just think that they really, really, really need to have a huge shock if they don't want to become, not necessarily a bust of a team, but, a bust of a franchise the last few years.
Yeah, a couple other teams that aren't really – one that stands out in a bad way is the Pacers. I mean, this is a team that I had as the 9 seed, and they're one of the worst teams in the East, and they certainly look like it. If you turn on a Pacers game, it's not a Rick Carlisle offense. It really doesn't look like that at all. Sabonis just came off one of his probably worst games of his career, or at least since he's been an all-star caliber player in the NBA. Had, I think, a career low or when it comes to shot attempts. Maybe not a career low, but one of his career lows. He only had like 4 or 5 shot attempts in one of these past games. Just really bad. They're 1-4. The Pacers do not look good, like a good basketball team at all. And a team that has looked pretty good is the Cavs. Evan Mobley, as we kind of stated earlier, he looks like one of the league's best defenders, which is just insane to think about because he's a rookie. And his offense is certainly been better than I expected. I expected him to be fine offensively, but he's impressed on the offensive end, I would say. So that's good to see. Let's flip it over to the West now. Teams that stand out in the West. Let's get one team that stood out in the Western Conference quickly. Justin, we'll start with you.
I brought it up for a second, and I'm happy to be able to go more in depth about this team. The Minnesota Timberwolves. No one believed me when I said the Timberwolves were going to be a great team, but they are a great basketball team, and they're going to make the playoffs. Not the play-in, they're going to make the playoffs. And Karl-Anthony Towns, we mentioned before, he's an early MVP candidate, and no one's really giving him that respect, but he legitimately is an early MVP candidate. And on defense, he has looked fantastic on the defensive end of the floor. And last year he made strides. He wasn't really a liability. He was average. But this year he's looking, I would say, above average. And in some stretches he's looked elite on the defensive end. And I think that there's no reason for that not to sustain itself. I think Towns, he's just continued his development as a defender, and there's no reason for that not to continue throughout the whole year. And Anthony Edwards, I have been thinking he's going to take a huge sophomore jump, and he's showing that right now. He's been very efficient as a scorer. And last year, post-All-Star break, this is what he was. And he's honestly leveled it up since then. And really, Anthony Edwards has been the perfect wing for this team, the perfect secondary scoring option as a guard/wing. And he's been very impactful for them. And D'Angelo Russell is really, he's helped out a lot. And I think him in this new role of a primary facilitator and a tertiary scorer is really his best role in the NBA, no matter what team he's on. And he's played that role to perfection for the Timberwolves, and he's been the perfect starting point guard for them. And Jaden McDaniels, I mean, offensively, he hasn't really stuck out whatsoever, but defensively, he's been what I expected him to. So that's exactly what I thought he'd be. And as a whole, this team, it's just, I think their offense is going to be great the entire year. I think they're going to have a top 10 or so offense in the league. Defensively, I think they're going to be passable enough on that end. And there are some concerns for this Timberwolves team, but I think the talent they have and Chris Finch as a coach who is probably the most underrated coach in basketball. I just think as a whole, this team, they are the most underrated team in the West, and I think that this is something that is bound to continue for the rest of the season.
Jacob, what about your team? What's your team in the West?
If I had to pick one, I guess the thing that I'm more surprised about is the fact that like these good teams like the Lakers, I think the Clippers are a decent team. I know they're riddled with injuries, mostly with Kawhi, but I think they're still a half decent team. And the Suns are having slow starts. A little surprising. It's not the end of the world. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think they're all going to be playoff teams and they're going to be fine. I guess I'm just shocked to see like Sacramento. I know it's only 2-2, but still, I don't know. Like I've had hope for the Kings for a long time, but I kind of folded my cards with them. I'm kind of like fed up with like how backwards or running in circles they've been, and it bothers me because their fans deserve a whole lot better. They just get treated with this garbage every year, and it's not fair to them. And I don't know. I just feel bad. But yeah, I mean, Harrison Barnes is playing out of his mind again. When Dallas traded him, that's probably one of the 5 to 10 worst deals in NBA history. I mean, they literally traded him for Justin Jackson. I don't care if it's a salary dump. Mark Cuban, you got plenty of money, pal. Last time I checked, you were not poor. So I don't understand why you can't just take up a little bit more money. Because if you ask me, it's worth it. Because think about this. Dorian Finney-Smith is like a horrendous version of Harrison Barnes. That's all he is. And if Harrison Barnes is on this team, this Mavericks team, I think it'd be a lot better. He's not a superstar, but he's pretty darn good. And, I don't know. I wish he was playing on a good team again because even though I don't think he put up numbers like this, I'd still think he'd be an impact player. I wish he was on a good team, but yeah. But Sacramento, they do have decent pieces. I like that. I like Halliburton. I like Fox. I wish that this situation with Marvin Bagley has not gotten to where it has because I actually think that he has a lot of talent. He's just been used wrong. He hasn't been fully used through. Even his rookie year, he kept coming off the bench when he should have been starting. Remember that was Dave Yeager. It was just so stupid why he was coming off the bench his rookie year. He needs somewhere where he is appreciated and loved. I hope they can find that place for him. But, the Kings, again, I don't expect it to last. But, for now, I think their fans should enjoy this winning or whatever you want to call it. Or not being garbage while it lasts.
I would love it if the Kings could just go ahead and trade Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, and Marvin Bagley all in one trade. The Kings have always had these tradable pieces. Like a team like the 76ers would do amazing with Buddy Hield. They just have these guys, and I'm like, I want to see these guys in a contender, and they haven't been that. And maybe you don't throw Marvin Bagley in that deal, but yeah, the Kings and the thing with the Kings, they do start off pretty well to start the year, and then they really, really take a nosedive at the midway or even before that at some point. So I agree. The Kings definitely not sustainable.
The Lakers, I mean, they've looked terrible. There's no other way to put it. They just have not looked good. They just blew a 26 game to the Thunder, who are not good at all. I've watched every single Thunder game. We are not good, and they lost to us. So
the Lakers made the Thunder look pretty good.
Yeah, they did.
Concerning.
They only won by 4 to the Spurs. They lost to the Sun. They lost to both of the good teams they played. Now the Grizzlies are pretty good, but even again, they only won. They won by 3 points, and that was with John Morant dropped 40 on them. I don't understand. And what concerns me most about this team, right, is that LeBron is not getting to the rim anymore, and that's a problem. And he's relying on unsustainable shooting. Now, LeBron is a good shooter, but he's not a great shooter. And right now he's shooting 48% from 3. Now, I bet if we took a vote on whether or not this shooting is sustainable, all 5 of us would say no, or at least I would hope so, because it's not anywhere near close to a sustainable number for LeBron. And if he's not getting to the rim, I mean, that's one of the staples of his game. So I'm worried about LeBron. I'm worried about Russell Westbrook. I'm always worried about Russell Westbrook, but he just doesn't fit at all. The one good game it's not a coincidence that the one good game he had was the game LeBron was out. It's not a coincidence. It lines up perfectly. Why? Because Russ can dominate the ball. He doesn't have to worry about playing off ball. He can just dominate the ball, get to the rim, do whatever he wants. But with LeBron, he can't do that, and it makes the fit weird. Like for a contender, like I'm extremely worried about that. Anthony Davis looks fantastic. Austin Reeves looks like the next LeBron. No, just kidding. But he looks like he could be a solid player for them. They got a couple guys off the bench that are pretty good. Carmelo isn't one of them. Rondo isn't one of them. I think Malik Monk's been pretty solid with his minutes. Same thing with Bazemore. I've liked his defense so far. But yeah, I'm worried about this Lakers team a lot. They need Kendrick Nunn back. Yeah, that's all I have to say about them.
It would be nice if they weren't starting DeAndre Jordan at the 5.
That too, yeah.
It would also be nice if they weren't playing lineups where they had Russell Westbrook and Rajon Rondo, Carmelo Anthony, and like another big man and Anthony Davis. Like I saw that lineup at one point. I forget what game it was. I think it was against the Grizzlies. I'm like, this might be the worst fit lineup that I've ever seen.
Russ and Rondo should not be on the court at the same time.
Absolutely not.
Under any circumstance.
And neither should
I don't
Russell
care
Westbrook
if
with
you have
another
5
big man,
people with
Anthony
their
Davis.
leg removed. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Warriors to the finals.
You might be right. And
Penciled in.
there are plays where, like, I remember they had one like DeAndre Jordan in the post, Russell Westbrook at the top of the key, off ball, by the way, and Rondo in the dunker spot. Like that, there's no world where that could happen. But
Rondo can't even dunk.
No.
The dunker spot.
Sorry. So yeah, I really like. If you noticed earlier, I said Lakers are contenders. I said that for a reason. I really don't think this team is a contender. I mean, I think they'll be good. They're going to make the playoffs. They'll probably win a round. But in terms of championship contenders, there are 5 teams I'm taking over, at least.
They got a lot to figure out. Nader, you can wrap this up for us. What's your team in the West?
Well, first of all, 100% agree with Thomas. It's so sad to see that the Lakers are going into overtime games with the Spurs, who are literally have one of the worst rosters in the entire NBA. And also the Thunder. With all due respect, the Thunder are not good. They have a lot of good players, but they are not good. But the team that I don't think people should be disappointed in, but it's something that I think can potentially lead into a huge story, the Pelicans. The Pelicans have not made any improvements whatsoever. They gave Lonzo Ball away. Now they have Thomas Satoransky and Garrett Temple to show for it. And if Zion and Ingram, continue to play the way they do together, although they're individually 2 of the best, although Ingram isn't by no means like close to the top 10 to 20 yet, they're both fantastic individual players. We could see Zion leave New Orleans fairly soon. There's nothing that they're doing to make him stay. Yes, he's injured. He's not playing good right now. It's not like he's struggling in the offense or anything. But I just wanted to shout that out as a bit of an anomaly and something that we should watch out for, because the Pelicans are by no means excelling the expectations of fans. And if they're not excelling right now, knowing the state of their franchise, then they're definitely disappointing. So yeah, that was just my quick team. And yeah, definitely something that you want to watch out for, because one of the most high prospects of all time may not even get a second deal on the team.
Seems to be a recurring theme for the Pelicans that they just seem to be underperforming. I remember that time when I projected them to make the playoffs that one year. It was, I think, 2 years, or no, it was last year. And then the year before that in the bubble, I was like, oh, the Pelicans are going to be the 8th seed. And they completely flopped. That seems to just be a recurring theme for the New Orleans Pelicans. The theme that I think I've been pretty disappointed in so far has been the Phoenix Suns. They beat they're still a good team. And I know one of them, they lost on a buzzer beater by Harrison Barnes, who's playing amazing, by the way. It's a big reason why the Kings are a 500 team right now. The Phoenix Suns, they're 1-3, I believe. They got blown out by the Trailblazers, a Trailblazers team, which CJ McCollum looks pretty good, but Dame does not look all that great so far this season. And he didn't even play that well, and they still got blown out by 29 points to the Trailblazers. They still lost to the Kings, even though it was on a buzzer beater. They did beat the Lakers, but at this point, beating the Lakers isn't exactly a great accomplishment when the Thunder are also beating the Lakers. And then they also lost to the Nuggets A team that I think they're better than a Nuggets team with Jamal Murray, in my opinion. So the Suns have been pretty disappointing so far. Chris Paul has shown, I mean, he's always like his aggression as a scorer hasn't really been there for the past 2 years, but it's really not been there this year. Devin Booker's been fine. Gilbert has been really good. I'm just kind of shocked, and I really don't expect it to last for the Suns, but it is disappointing to see them at 1-3 on the season so far. But guys, that's going to do it for On the Ball on another Friday night. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll get out of here, and we just want to remind you to like and subscribe if you, of course, enjoyed the basketball talk. Download the TWSN mobile app for more content from us, articles, all these live shows we're going to have on a weekly basis. Tomorrow, we got the soccer sit-down in the morning, got college football show. Day after that, we got NFL preview. All sports, we're covering it. Of course, company also has a betting service on our Patreon page, so check that out if you want some best bets. A lot of our analysts have been making absolute bank, and they've been giving great tips out for NFL and UFC, and even NBA picks as well. You can get some NBA stuff on there as well, so make sure to just give that a chance and check it out. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night. We'll see you next week for more NBA talk on the Ball.
Is this the dagger?